Welcome to the At the Coalface podcast with your host, Jason Greenwood. This podcast is all about what it's really like in the trenches of digital and e-commerce. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the At the Coalface podcast with me, Jason Greenwood, your host. It is my pleasure to welcome Sam Joel from Australia to the pod. Welcome, Sam.
Hello.
Awesome to have you along for the ride today, mate. And look, we met over LinkedIn, and you're working in a super high growth space at the moment. You're working in the NFT space, but you're working in quite a unique niche, sub-niche of that NFT space. You are the founder of GiveTree.org, which is a social impact NFT marketplace, which is in beta now and is due to launch in 2022. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. Yep.
And your story is so interesting. I thought, man, this is one of those stories that is quite inspirational. It's quite aspirational. It can teach us all a lot about how technology can impact our lives in positive ways and how we can use technology to impact other people's lives in positive ways. So maybe you can just spend a minute or two just sharing how you even got into this space, a little bit of your backstory, a little bit of your elevator pitch about who Sam is, how you got to be here, and then we can dive into a little bit more of the technical aspects of what you guys are working on.
Yeah, sure. So I started working on GiveTree 3 years ago now, when I was actually in a really sort of difficult time in my life. I'd actually ended up in a position after a series of unfortunate events in my personal life where I'd actually become homeless, and I was struggling with mental illness and addiction and homelessness. And I was actually homeless between August 2018 and June 2019, however many months that is. And then, during that time, I was actually living in an internet cafe here in Sydney in a suburb called Haymarket. And it was a really difficult time. There's a lot of stuff that I was needing and that I just didn't have access to anymore. And so charities for me during that time were actually a huge help. So at that time, I started working on a charity directory, which was just a simple charity directory idea. And I was just drawing it out one day. And then, over the last 3 years, it's progressed and iterated into different versions of the product, and it's sort of just evolved. And so it went from the charity directory initially to what would happen if people could donate to those charities through the platform, just like donations of money. And then it went to what would happen if people could donate anything to those charities. So like fundraising or volunteering or donating money. And then it's progressed to what would happen if people could donate cryptocurrency to them. And at that point, we actually ended up talking with the Giving Block, who's a cryptocurrency to product provider. And then we actually became a partner with them here in Australia. We're one of the first partners with them here in Australia. And then it's over the last sort of 4 weeks, I got into the non-fungible token space and the NFT space, and I've just gone really deep on NFTs, and I really like them. I think they're an amazing technology, and I think they have a huge potential to help charities here in Australia. So we're now working with over 30 charity partners at the moment here in Australia, with just getting them to start understanding what NFTs are and how they work and how they can use them to fundraise and that sort of thing. And so I've changed after the last sort of 3 years of looking at over 30 different types of donations for charities and speaking with over 80 different charities at different sort of sizes. So small to medium sized charities, and then larger sort of national sized charities, and then larger international groups as well. I really felt that NFT is one of the most unique and best opportunities for fundraising for charities. So I decided to focus GiveTree on that, and we've been working the last few weeks to try and make the user experience and the user interface and some of the new Web3 features, get them all working properly. And we're hoping to launch GiveTree as Australia's sort of first NFT social impact marketplace, hopefully in January, which is going to be really exciting. And then our charity partners are pretty excited as well.
Wow, so much to unpick there. But one of the places I'd love to start is how you even got into the technical side of the internet, even before the pivot towards the NFT marketplace model for your organization. You came from very much a property background, a real estate background for a number of years. Since 2008, you had been involved in real estate all the way up until 2019. You were involved in various different aspects of real estate. And so this is quite a dramatic pivot versus someone, say, like myself, who's been involved in the internet since it went mainstream. And I feel like I'm almost an old man now compared to some of you young guns. And so I've seen all the patterns emerge over the years as we went from static HTML sites to dynamic sites. We went away from Flash and we moved to, mobile first. And we've just had these massive patterns emerge over the last couple of decades around the internet and how people use the internet for good and for bad. But you're relatively new to it. You've been working on GiveTree for over 3 years now. But prior to that, you really didn't have a background in technology, at least as far as I can tell. And so what drew you into that space? Or had you always had an interest in technology, but you just hadn't done anything?
Yeah, so I grew up in Canberra and I live in Sydney now. And basically, yeah, when I was about 14 years old, my parents opened a real estate agency down in Canberra. And so I pretty much grew up around real estate and worked in real estate a lot. And then when I was in my early 20s, I studied music and sound engineering and sound production. So I had to work with programs like Logic and Pro Tools and that sort of stuff. And then me and some friends moved up to Sydney in my early 20s, which was about 7 or 8 years, roughly 8 to 10 years ago, somewhere around there. And we moved up to Sydney for music initially, and then I moved back to Canberra, and then I moved back up here again to Sydney when I was about 27. And I was, as you say, I was working in real estate at that time. But I guess I definitely had an interest in technology because I had that experience with sound engineering and with Logic and Pro Tools and that sort of stuff. And that sort of got me thinking about software. And I always tried to help out with the website and social media and stuff for the family business and that sort of thing. But there was nothing ever that significant as far as my background goes with building a web product. I did try and build a web product earlier in my 20s, like a real estate web product. But outside of that was all contracted out to other third-party service providers. So that really wasn't like much of an involvement for me in the actual development process. This time with GiveTree has been a little bit different for me over the last 3 years because I actually had to try and learn everything from scratch. So I started with obviously just sketching out some designs and stuff when I was living back in the internet cafe. And that sort of drove me into pretty naturally led toward trying to work on like user experience design and user interface design. And that's where I started. And then I had a few attempts at like sourcing and employing offshore teams for this project. The first 2 times failed. The first time took 8 months and failed. The second time took 5 months and failed. And then this third time, I've been working with an offshore team since March in 2021, and that's been going really well. And then over the last sort of month, I've started to onboard a whole bunch of people here in Sydney, Australia, to actually join the team. And now things are starting to get way more interesting because there's some really talented people joining the team. So I guess over the last few years, I've had to upskill is the short answer. Like I've had to learn things I did not know how to do, like user interface design and user experience design, and then also like project management and that sort of thing. Like basic understanding of how a technology stack works, like what is a scalable technology stack, what are the different parts of a technology stack, what are the different processes, how does it all work, that sort of thing. And then now with NFTs, it's been having to do that all over again with Web3 stuff, which has been really interesting and also, very challenging, but very interesting as well.
And very exciting. This is the funny thing about this. I've been sitting on the sidelines and I've been watching for the last couple of years as Web3 has started to become more of a reality, as cryptocurrency has hit much more of the mainstream, and as the blockchain has started to be used in much more broadly across internet technology as a whole for authentication and chain of custody and authentication and so many other use cases that are directly related to other internet technologies and or e-commerce, digital commerce, and the metaverse. And so it's been a really interesting scenario for me to sit on the sidelines, don't own any NFTs, don't own any cryptocurrency, have really stayed away from this space in terms of an active role. I haven't taken an active role in this space, but I'm starting to become a little bit more vocal about what I've learned about the space over the last couple of years, because I think it's going to have such a dramatic impact. Ultimately, in the medium to long term, it's going to have such a dramatic impact on commerce that it is going to become the very foundation of commerce in many ways. And NFTs in particular are going to become the bridge between physical and virtual goods. And I think that I can start to see glimpses of how this is going to play out. I don't obviously have the full picture. I don't think anybody does yet, because we're all creating on the fly and we're all trying to change the wheels on the cars that goes down the motorway at 100 kilometers an hour. But what is interesting is that this model of a marketplace is now being applied to NFTs. And I'm seeing that accelerate as a business model. And I'm seeing that accelerate as an enablement tool to allow your average everyday person that's not necessarily hyper technical. It's allowing them to get into the NFT space with a much lower barrier to entry, much lower technical knowledge requirement. And I see that as starting to overcome some of those barriers to adoption, which will allow them to ultimately explode to new heights. And We've obviously seen Fractal just about ready to go live very soon. And you and I both know some of the people involved in Fractal, which is a gaming specific NFT marketplace. So we're seeing vertical specific NFT marketplaces emerge. We see OpenSea, which is an open slather marketplace for all types of NFTs and the types of volumes and dollar values that are flowing through OpenSea now are just staggering. So we're definitely seeing an acceleration of NFTs in the marketplace, and the knowledge around them, I think, seems to be growing. But it is still very early days. And I think where people like me that have seen these patterns come and go many times over the years would caution people that maybe look at this as a brand new asset class, that they would exercise caution, because as many people don't yet even understand how normal e-commerce works from a technology perspective, they're even earlier in their NFT journey. And I guess the model is well known because everybody knows what Amazon is, everybody knows what eBay is, everybody understands what TradeMe is, everybody understands what a marketplace model is. And so they understand buying and selling NFTs on a marketplace, but they don't necessarily understand the underlying technology very well. And so would you recommend that people that are new to this space exercise caution initially?
I guess it depends how you want to look at it. With any new technologies, there are risks. There are always going to be safe options, and there are always going to be risky options in any sort of market space. I think with this new technology, because there's that sort of educational piece, it seems riskier potentially than it actually is. I think it's a pretty organic progression of technology, to be honest. And in a lot of ways, it's actually safer than current systems that we're using for these sorts of things. But yeah, look, caution is always good advice for anyone who's stepping into a space they don't fully understand. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I guess for me, what I'm seeing, and I'd love your thinking on this, because obviously you're much deeper into the hardcore underlying tech of this than I am. What I see as the benefit of an NFT over and above the pure art aspects, the pure digital art aspects, and the pure digital asset aspects of the NFT space. What I particularly like, and where I think that they are going to add tremendous value to global commerce full stop, is in the area of smart contracts. So I think of them as digital keys, the ability to unlock new functionality and new chains of ownership, new chains of custodianship in ways that we have never had before. And I start thinking about the overlap between the physical and the virtual worlds. And when we look at something like Solana Labs, where the minting of NFTs and the buying and selling of NFTs from a gas and a cost perspective, and even from an environmental perspective, is just it's a fraction, a tiny fraction of older blockchain technologies and older NFT technologies. And we're seeing this now where NFTs, the cost to mint NFTs and the cost to trade them is rapidly falling down to near zero, or will over the next couple of years. And all of a sudden now, when adopting the technology approaches near zero, it all of a sudden starts to open up many more opportunities than what it used to be able to open up. And it unlocks new overlaps between the physical and the virtual. So if you imagine Nike, for example, and they want to, with every new drop of a limited edition shoe, they start to serialize the shoe. So they've got serial numbers on all the components of the shoe. And then they automatically issue an equivalent NFT that's associated with that shoe that signifies ownership in that shoe. And then if you want to sell that shoe, instead of just putting it up on a marketplace and then having to maybe go through the authentication process with a third-party authenticator to authenticate that shoe is real, we now have it associated with effectively its digital twin in NFT form. And that chain of ownership now can take place and be transferred based on the NFT and its association with a serialized physical good. And it allows the original issuer of the NFT to partake in the secondary market for that product if it becomes popular. And that's where I see it being an essential bridge between the physical and virtual worlds. And there's many other areas where that can be leveraged in a similar way. But those are the initial thinking that I have, is becomes a key. This becomes a bridge between the physical and the virtual. Is that kind of how you're thinking of it too? Or are you thinking of it more in the pure art inherent value of the visual element aspect of NFTs?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for example, and that's you made some good points in there that sort of underpin my earlier point about enhanced safety of the technology. But I think you nailed it. There's definitely enhanced safety there. But basically, yeah, we're building an Unreal Engine 5 world, and then the idea is that purchasers of NFTs will have in-game outcomes. So there's definitely a bridge there between NFTs, bridging the real world with the sort of unreal world, so to speak. So yeah, no, it's very exciting. Completely agree. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's gonna be
cool.
great.
And so I guess if we start to unpick what you guys are planning to do and are starting to do with GiveTree, you guys are not there. You're not intending to be or to provide the ability for someone to mint an NFT using your platform as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, again, I'm pretty new to this, and your website's still a little bit light on detail.
We will be allowing people to mint. Yep.
Oh, you will. You
Yep.
will. So people will be able to mint their own NFTs via your platform, and then also put them up for sale, for trade, and also be able to buy using real money, i.e., say a credit card, and maybe they load up a digital wallet on the GiveTree digital wallet, and then they're able to buy and sell and trade NFTs via your website, whether they're minted on your website or not.
Yeah, so our plan is to give people access to multiple blockchains, and then they'll have the choice when they're creating an item or a collection, they'll have the choice of which blockchain they'd like to use. And then based on the blockchain they choose, the users can connect their wallet, the relevant wallet, and yeah, they can purchase, trade and sell NFTs, they can mint NFTs, all the good stuff.
Wow, this is super exciting. And are you seeing this primarily are you targeting your site and your functionality at artists, or are you primarily targeting this at individuals who, they maybe aren't necessarily artistic in their own, maybe they don't even consider themselves artists, but they want to give back to a community, or in this case, try to raise money for charity or something like that? Because we've seen, I don't know how it works in Australia, but we've seen in New Zealand, for example, we see a lot of people put up an item. So let's say it's a charity auction, and maybe they've even got an old piece of art at home that's got an inherent piece of value, and they say, hey, I'm going to donate this to the charity of my choice. But instead of giving them cash, I'm going to put up my piece of art from my house, or this sculpture, or something of value. It could even be a car. And they put that up for auction on Trade Me, and they say, hey, whatever this sells for, all of the money is going to go to the charity of my choice. And so I guess what I take from what you're doing is you're doing something quite similar, except for the fact that this is in a pure digital environment and there is no physical goods changing hands. It is purely the NFTs that are changing hands.
Yeah, and that's correct. And okay, so I guess, first of all, on one side, I guess you've got the charities who are the beneficiaries. And so every transaction on GiveTree will result in some money being donated to a charity. Then I guess you're going to have professionals who are wanting to, earn an income for themselves and also do good at the same time and donate a percentage. And then, yeah, you're definitely going to have people who maybe they're not a professional artist, but they would like to raise money for charity and they'd like to get into Web 3.0 with some NFTs and start exploring the space and start raising some money for charity. That's completely okay as well. I think initially we're going to be curating a little bit just for launch. We're just going to work with a few sort of well-known artists here in Sydney, Australia, and around the world. So one of those artists is, like, for example, Mulga, who's a very famous artist here in Sydney, Australia. And yeah, so Mulga's going to mint some NFTs and he's going to raise money for our charity partner called Half Cut. And Half Cut, they protect the Daintree rainforest here in Australia. Yeah, that's an example of how Mulga is going to help use GiveTree and NFTs to raise money to actually protect a rainforest here in Australia and help reduce the rising CO2 emission problem. So that's exciting. And yeah, absolutely, individuals can do it as well. You don't have to be a professional. You're more than welcome to use GiveTree. If you'd like to raise money for a charity, if you'd like to create some NFTs, you're more than welcome. Yeah, that's exciting. And with the smart contracts as well, there's the ability for money to be going to those charities automatically as well, which is really helpful.
Awesome stuff. And I guess if someone was to own, how I use that example of someone selling a piece of art they got hanging in their house on Trade Me and then donating that money to the charity of their choice, I guess if someone's bought an NFT, they wouldn't necessarily have created it themselves or whatever. They might own it. It might sit in their digital wallet. They might have bought a Bored Ape back in the day when it was still really cheap, and they might have one that's worth a fair bit of money now. And they may want to donate a portion of that to charity, or they may want to sell it and give the proceeds to 3 or 4 charities, whatever the case may be. And so I guess someone could bring from their existing digital wallet, they may have an NFT or multiple NFTs that they already own that they've purchased on another. They might have bought it on OpenSea originally, for example, and they may simply want to sell that off. They may want to make a little bit of money and liquidate some of that money for themselves and then give a portion to charity, where the case may be. So I'm guessing that your platform facilitates that type of sale. Someone brings in an NFT that's either on another platform currently, or they want to move it across and they want to sell it. They want to list it on your platform. They want to sell it. And then maybe they want to keep a portion of the proceeds for themselves and donate 50% of that to a charity of their choice, or allow you to decide which charity that 50% ultimately goes to. I guess you're going to support multimodal, uploads and sales of the NFTs.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And yeah, we absolutely do. And yeah, Absolutely. More than welcome to bring in NFTs that you already own. And the good thing about GiveTree in that scenario is that you can do everything within the same ecosystem. So all the donations, when you set up your item or your collection for sale, it all gets written into the smart contract. You just choose who you'd like to support, whichever charity that is, and you set the percentage. And then, yeah, if you'd like a percentage to go to you, no worries at all. You set the percentages. Yep, that's awesome. You can definitely do that. If you did want to board a yacht club or a CryptoPunk or something like that, it'd be absolutely incredible, and we would absolutely welcome that.
Exciting times. And help me understand. So I understand the concept of smart contracts, and I understand it effectively being almost like executable code. When the blockchain transfer of ownership happens, there's an execution of code there that runs the underlying functions of the contract and executes the contract at the time of transfer of ownership from one owner to another, or one owner to multiple owners, or multiple owners to one owner. I understand that. What I don't yet understand, and maybe you can help me and the audience to better understand this, is would it require, in the case where physical money has to change hands, say USD, for example, where in execution, so someone says, hey, we're going to donate 50% of this to XYZ charity at the point of sale. And so therefore it's going to change hands. The actual NFT itself is going to be sold to whoever buys the NFT. And so therefore they will then own it they'll be the registered owner on the blockchain of that particular NFT. But we now have to execute, we have to write to the blockchain the execution of the split of the take of the sale of that NFT. Now, do you have to provide the payments plumbing at that point of the transaction being executed? Do you have to provide the payments plumbing to make that happen? Or when the NFT was minted, is the payment plumbing created at the point where the NFT is minted? So for example, if you needed to liquidate that down into USD, the value of that transaction down to USD, when you mint the NFT, could you align it with, say, Stripe, and say Stripe is the executor of all the financial components of anything that happens with this NFT? Or do you have to provide the plumbing to execute that?
Yeah, for example, the Giving Block provide a facility where if you need to liquidate the cryptocurrency into cash, the Giving Block use the Gemini exchange in America, and they can provide that facility if you need to liquidate from crypto into cash. They liquidate into US dollars. There are other service providers who liquidate into other currencies. But yeah, that's definitely possible. It's something that happens on the GiveTree platform. That liquidation stage of the process is something that will happen after the crypto transaction for the NFT has been finalized. So the crypto, you'll purchase the NFT using crypto. That crypto will then get transferred either directly to your wallet or to a service provider's wallet, who can then liquidate on your behalf and then transfer you the money. It's a secondary relationship that will have to be established. So yeah, that's how it works.
Nice. Okay, so you don't have to provide the liquidation plumbing as part of your platform. You will simply facilitate the transfer of the crypto in payment for the NFT, and you provide that plumbing to make sure the crypto makes it into the right wallet from the right wallet to the right wallet for the buyers and the sellers, and the transaction record is recorded to the blockchain for that particular NFT transaction. So you make sure that the secure end-to-end transactional component actually takes place, and you provide the piping to make sure that actually happens. But if someone wants to liquidate that crypto down to a fiat currency of some variety that they can actually use, then that's a secondary transaction that happens through whatever channel they prefer to do that through. So that makes complete sense to me. And when you go to price up your NFT or go to sell your NFT, will you denominate it in a specific cryptocurrency, or would you say, I'm guessing you have to. I'm guessing you have to say, look, I'm going to take X Sol for this, or I'm going to take, or are you pricing it in, say, for example, USD, and then at the point the transaction takes place, if you want to pay in a specific cryptocurrency, the transaction or exchange rate is whatever the exchange rate is at that point in time for the USD versus that particular cryptocurrency that the person wants to pay with?
Yeah, so when you're setting up the item or the collection, we'll encourage you to set the price using cryptocurrency, and then we will display the conversion rate at that time. Obviously, the conversion rate will change. Then later on down the track, if you did want to liquidate into cash from crypto, you would then need to look at what the exchange rate is at that point. Yep.
Okay, so I would, for example, if I put up an auction, then I could put it up in, I could denominate it in Bitcoin, or I could denominate it in ETH or Sol or whatever crypto I want. I can denominate my sale in that crypto, and then you, in real time, just like we do today on e-commerce websites, international e-commerce websites, we can show what the customer would be paying in their local currency with just a real-time exchange rate calculation and currency display on the front end.
Yep, that's correct. And then I'll just caveat what I just said with initially in version 1 of GiveTree, we're not going to have an unlimited amount of crypto denominations that you can choose from. There will be a limited amount. It'll just be an initial few, probably ETH. And yep.
Nice, nice. And how does it work in a scenario where one, obviously, if we look at the price of Bitcoin now, it's through the roof. So how do fractional denominations work in the crypto world? Because again, I've never bought, sold, or traded cryptocurrency before. So how do fractional denominations work in that environment? Do they have the equivalent of cents and dollars? Do they have fractions of that? So that obviously, if you want to sell an NFT for $5,000, that's not even the equivalent of one Bitcoin, because one Bitcoin is worth far more than that. So how do the transactions get broken down from a fractional perspective when you want to buy with a cryptocurrency that is even one of that particular coin, that cryptocurrency coin or that token is worth such a high value? How does fractional transactions, how are those facilitated?
They work in the exact same way as all transactions. Yeah, that's the beauty of cryptocurrency is it can be made into a fraction. You don't have to spend a whole Ethereum or a whole Bitcoin. You can just use a fraction of that to make a purchase or sell something. The other thing that's really cool is, for example, one of our partners, coolpoints.club, they're working with an artist called T-Way and the Islands of Cool project that T-Way is doing with Cool Points Club. And they're actually dropping 100 NFTs tomorrow, and it's one artwork. It's one T-Way artwork that they've applied a grid to, and they've split it, they've fractioned it into 100 fractions. I don't know if I'm using the right words there. I'm not even sure if they're words.
It's almost like a puzzle, right?
Yeah. So it's not just the crypto side that can be fractionalized or whatever. It's also the artwork itself. Yeah, so they've applied it to one artwork for T-Way, and there's 100 pieces that you can buy, and each one can be bought as a separate NFT. And that's an example of how artists can actually use fractions, and it's really exciting. And if you did want to get in on that's actually dropping tomorrow. But yeah, no, it's a super cool concept, and that kind of flexibility is something that our current systems just don't have.
That's super exciting. And when you think about the future of NFTs, obviously it's still very early days, and we've got older technology coexisting with newer technology. And we have many people are referring to Bitcoin, for example, as e-gold or the equivalent of e-gold because of the difficulty and the cost and complexity of mining Bitcoin. And so therefore, and the fixed number of Bitcoins that will ever be mined, and many other aspects to Bitcoin, the limitation in transaction frequencies and many other things about Bitcoin make it what we would call more stable in some respects than other cryptocurrencies. And that has its pros and its cons, and every cryptocurrency has its pros and cons, and that's why they're all popular in different ways. But for you, we're still really early in this piece of NFTs, and it feels almost there's been a lot of people, there's been hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people around the world over the last, say, 5 years that have made an absolute killing in the rise of cryptocurrencies and their value over the last few years. And so they're playing with house money. And it feels almost in the old days of physical artwork. We know that physical artwork was used in many cases, not all, but in many cases to launder money or to move money around the world. So a piece of art would be bought in one country and then to be shipped in another country and sold on the other end and liquidated back to the local fiat currency without the oversight of tax specialists and all sorts of other things. So art historically has been used as a store of value in many respects over and above the intrinsic value of the art itself. It's actually a store of value. So it's not just somebody saying, hey, I love that piece of art. It's a beautiful piece of art. I love it. I'm going to hang it in my house. It's more, hey, this is actually a store of value that is a reasonably transportable store of value. Certainly not as transportable as a digital asset like an NFT, but much more transportable than a shipping container full of gold. We have these analogs in the physical world of NFTs and kind of the direction that NFTs are headed. And do you feel that the massive rise in value of NFTs and the craze around NFTs has been stoked by a lot of the money that people have made in cryptocurrencies over, say, the last 5 years, and they've got to find a place to put it. And so instead of just liquidating it to local fiat, they're going, hey, why don't I buy some NFTs and use that as a store of value instead of holding it in crypto?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think the underlying blockchain technology for both applications is really exciting. Bitcoin started the trend back in whenever it was, 2008 or whatever, and then having other applications be built on top of that is really exciting. And I think what we're seeing today is so many different coins being created, and that's really exciting. And absolutely, like the fact that people have been hearing about cryptocurrencies for so long now, and people have got their wallets set up and started trading in cryptocurrencies and that sort of stuff. A lot of the education work has already been done before the new technology of NFTs or the new application of NFTs on the blockchain technology. So I think that Yeah, absolutely. The short answer is yes. The longer answer is probably a lot more complicated, but yeah, no, the short answer is yeah, 100%.
Nice. And I keep seeing, I haven't joined Discord yet because I haven't had a need to yet, but I feel like I'm going to be sucked into this very shortly. And it feels, at least as I've heard Discord described, it's almost like Reddit on steroids and very much focused at crypto and NFTs. Is that effectively what you get with Discord? Is you're getting a project specific space? You can think of it almost like a social media platform because you're able to interact, or almost like an old school bulletin board in a way. And each crypto or NFT project will set up their own Discord server and effectively create a place for community to interact with them and their project through a technology that is really specific to this space. Is that right?
Yeah, I think for now, Discord is definitely serving a really helpful purpose for sure. And creating a community around your platform is definitely a good idea. We're trying to do the same thing at the moment. I think that in the future, things will probably change as they always do. At the moment, definitely. Yeah, Discord's playing a really helpful role.
And do you see someone like me? So, for example, I've got a pretty good following on LinkedIn, got a very small following on Instagram, got almost zero following on TikTok and other platforms. So, LinkedIn is really where I've put my focus over the last 4 years. Is someone like me who's not necessarily running a crypto project or running an NFT project, would I ever be in a place where I want to set up a Discord server of my own to try to create a community around my own personal brand? Or is this really, Discord is primarily focused on creating communities around crypto and blockchain related projects?
Honestly, you can create a community on any platform you want. It's all about just understanding who's going to be in your community and what sort of platforms they like to use. For an NFT marketplace like GiveTree, it makes a lot of sense. Maybe it makes more sense for us than it does for, say, I don't know, like a car salesman or something. But yeah, it's all about just thinking about what do your customers want.
And where do they hang out? Where do they hang out already?
Yeah, for sure. And Discord, it's obviously very closely aligned with like gaming and that sort of stuff. And that's why, the Fractal guys here in Sydney and around the world, the Fractal team is so exciting. I think they're about to hit 100,000 on their Discord community within the space of a few weeks or whatever. So yeah, really exciting.
Wow. And why is it called a Discord server? Is it something you have to host yourself, or is Discord actually centrally owned and managed like Facebook is?
I don't know. I'd have to ask. I'd have to figure that out. I'm not sure. But yeah, I just look at it like a channel, to be honest.
Okay, so you think of it almost like a public Slack channel.
Yeah, depending, I think you can change the settings between public, private, but yeah, pretty much just a channel, just a communication hub. Yeah.
Okay, and anybody can join unless it's private, in which case you have to approve people joining your Discord channel. But I don't know why they call it a server. That's the bit that confuses me, as opposed to just a Discord channel. So that's probably the bit that's thrown me. And because I've never been on Discord before, I'm not speaking from experience. And until I join, that's why I love to talk to people like you when I'm still an absolute novice on things, so that I can get an expert's view on this, or at least someone who's experienced in it. I love to kind of act like a complete novice, because I am a complete novice, and ask the questions, I guess, that I think the audience might want to ask, but might feel too stupid to ask.
Oh, mate, I know exactly what you mean, because I'm a complete noob myself. Like NFTs, I am so noob to this. Honestly, really, I'm still in the learning process myself. I'm just trying to learn as much as I can every day. Yeah, and I'm not sure about that server terminology. Maybe one of your listeners can help out with that.
Nice. Look, it's interesting because I've followed Gary V for many years, and he was the one that just verbally kicked my ass into gear in 2018 around creating content, and I thank him for that. Regardless of whether you like Gary V or you like his style or you like his content, regardless, he has been responsible for pushing a lot of people into the content space and giving back to the communities that matter to them, and building communities in the first place. He really has put the fire under a lot of people, and I can thank him for that, because I wouldn't have, without his incessant badgering through his content, I probably wouldn't have started creating content in early 2018. And so I'm very thankful for him for that. But what's interesting is that Gary was quite early to the NFT space, and with V Friends and his new collaboration with Uno and some of the other really cutting edge things that he's doing, he was very early to this. And he's one that actually, in my opinion, my humble, limited view opinion, he helped to single-handedly make the market for NFTs and massively educate the market. Now, has he benefited from being early? Absolutely. He has done very well, both financially and in terms of personal brand, no question about that. But how do you view people like Gary V, who are out there stumping for the NFT space, and trying to get people to be realistic about where this is headed, and helping them to start understanding where this thing is likely headed. Because I don't think anybody knows for sure, but I think everybody has a few ideas of their own that they're contributing to the whole. I'd love your opinion on Gary Vee and his contribution to the NFT space, and overall whether you think his impact has been positive or negative.
Yeah, I think Gary's impact, just like any influencer's impact who's helping with that educational piece, is incredibly valuable and helpful. So it's awesome. The more people who do programs and ideas like what Gary has done, the better. It's pretty brave to be testing out new technologies and trying new ideas when you've got so many people watching and criticizing what you do, like someone who's an influencer at his sort of level. So yeah, look, it would be a lot of pressure. So yeah, good on him. He's at least doing his best and doing what he can. That's all anyone can do. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think, at least from what I can tell, I've never met Gary Vee in person. I've seen him speak in person, but never met him in person. And so it's always hard to know what someone's underlying heart or intention is. But he lives his life pretty publicly. And at least from what I can tell, his intent seems to be pretty reasonably pure. He's pretty high energy. And he is out there, I think, helping the business world understand the application of NFTs too, and helping the marketing world to understand the application of NFTs, and helping to come up with new use cases for the underlying technology, and helping to contribute to the space from a creative perspective. And to me, it feels really positive. Now, I know that a lot of people initially thought, hey, he's just a charlatan and he's just jumping on the latest bandwagon where he can make $1 billion. And that may be true. That may have been one of the initial incentives was, hey, how can I make money out of this? Which there's not necessarily anything wrong with that, because he is a businessman. He makes no bones about the fact that he's a businessman, and he's going to skate to where the puck is going as opposed to being late. And he was very honest about the fact, I think, that he was very early. And I think all of are early to this, to be honest with you, because whilst there's a few really smart people working in the space and super intelligent people, those people are working oftentimes on the underpinnings of the technology. If you look at the team behind Solana, if you look at the team behind ETH, you look at some of the teams that are behind some of this underlying technology, and it's extremely complex stuff, and they are literally breaking new ground. And when you have technology like Solana, which has big outages occasionally because they are breaking new ground and they get slated in the media a little bit, when you're moving fast, you're going to break stuff. I think that's just part and parcel of being at the cutting edge of technology, and it's something I've witnessed over the last 25 years of being in the technology space.
Yeah, look, things are moving fast. I think a lot of VCs are struggling to keep up.
Well, exactly. And they're going, how do we invest in these new types of companies? Because in many cases, they're not companies in the traditional sense. They're oftentimes a foundation or a distributed project or whatever. And so they have unique funding mechanics, whether that be selling an initial tranche of tokens or taking in some funding for some initial hardware to get the project off the ground. There's the methods of funding these new projects, whether that be blockchain projects or NFT projects, the mechanisms for funding with DAOs and a lot of alternative ways of these projects coming to life. They are not coming to life in many cases through the traditional, hey, let's establish a limited liability company and start a business and open a business bank account. They're not starting in that traditional way. They're starting as a distributed project contributed to by, say, and they oftentimes start out as an open source distributed project, which makes it even more murky. And then when they have to start thinking about funding, then they have to start thinking about the actual business structure or the trust structure of their project so that they can actually go out and get more traditional funding. Is that kind of one of the things you're seeing as well?
Oh yeah, it's so exciting. It's so exciting. You're not limited, as you say, you're not limited to just VCs and P2I Ltd. There's flexibility now. Like this whole initial coin offering, this ICO thing, this token sort of strategy, I love it. I think I'm all about it. It's very closely aligned with this concept of crowdfunding, which there's different ways that you can raise the resources that you need to do the project. And if that is a distributed project or an open source distributed project or however you'd like to do it. I think ultimately what it comes back to though is there's no right or wrong way to do your project. It's just about doing your project. It doesn't really matter how you do your project. What matters is doing your project. So what is your goal for the project? What is your intent for the project? And how are you going to get there? If you want to get there through an initial coin offering, that's cool. If you want to get there through crowdfunding, no worries. You want to get there through a traditional method, go ahead. I think, like, honestly, though, an open source distributed project, that's good too. So it's all about more flexibility in how you can achieve your goal now, which is the exciting part. You're not limited to just VC route or just bank route. You can go down more paths now, and that's super exciting. That's a great thing. That's the beauty of the technology. It's the whole philosophy and idea behind decentralization.
It feels much more democratic, right? It's democratized the technology instead of only 2 or 3 massive conglomerates globally. The amazing thing about this is that the Facebooks, the Metas, the Googles, the Apples of the world, they haven't cornered the market on this. And that's such an exciting thing. Now, the argument could be made that they're trying to corner the market of the metaverse, and they're trying to create some sort of proprietary mechanisms there that lock people in, and big companies are going to be big companies, and they're going to act like big companies act, right? And they're going to act in the best interest of their shareholders and themselves, and usually that means some form of lock-in and some form of indentured servitude, for lack of a better term, for your data. And it's interesting to see, though, that the crypto technology, the underlying crypto and blockchain technology, and the underlying NFT technology is open, and not one of these global behemoths have managed to figure out a way to corner it yet. And so they don't have a monopoly on the new projects coming to market. They don't have them. In fact, if we look at Meta, their cryptocurrency, it didn't get out the gate. It was a stillborn project, and they've had to really wind back their own expectations of how they're going to go to market, because antitrust regulators are watching them like a hawk. And so they're not just going to be able to go out and buy up an entire new project that's just getting off the ground. They're not just going to be able to buy that up without some severe oversight. And so what's exciting to me is that this democratization of this technology, the underlying blockchain technology in particular, it has become democratized. And there is these new funding mechanisms to where they don't have to go, their only route to market isn't, okay, I'm going to build this to make myself attractive to Meta and sell myself for $500 million to Meta. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I really like this metaphor that I always say to people is like, when I was a kid, and I'm only 31, right? So when I was a kid, we had this big TV across the room, and you would get up, you would go across the room to this TV, and you'd pick from 5 channels, and it was one of those big box TVs, right? Now I've got a mobile smartphone in my pocket. I don't even have to get out of my seat. I pull it out of my pocket and I pull up YouTube, and I can choose. I think there's over 50 million YouTube channels now. Yeah. And I think over 2 million of those channels are making like 6-figure salaries for the channel owners. But the reason I want to use YouTube as a metaphor is because I think that what's going to happen with the metaverse worlds is going to be really comparable to what happened with YouTube and YouTube channels. So the way I look at Meta and that sort of thing is like an internet. Like basically, if you try and create a world, even if you are a big company, and you try and limit what people can do in that world, a lot of people just aren't going to go to that world. They're just going to go to a different YouTube channel and watch a different YouTube channel. So you could compare it to how like a lot of the big media companies that were used to having control of TVs and that sort of thing, and they had complete control of the distribution network before YouTube. You know, they really struggled to compete initially with a lot of established YouTube channels, which were just owned by just random people, right? Just people in their own rooms starting channels and making news. And it's still today, the big media companies struggle to compete with all those YouTube channels. You go to the YouTube channels which have the content you enjoy. It doesn't matter who the creator is. Same thing, in my personal subjective opinion, is going to happen with metaverse worlds. You're going to go to worlds that you enjoy. Some worlds are going to be ghost towns, and some worlds are going to be really popular, hives of activities kind of thing. Meta, in my opinion, will be one of those worlds. And in the same way that their Libra cryptocurrency failed, they're going to have to think about how is their metaverse world going to stack up when it's compared to potentially 50 million other worlds.
So accurate, so true, and being able to transition seamlessly between those worlds, I think, is going to be, a critical piece of interoperability there.
Me and some friends are working on a portal concept already. Yeah.
Wow, this is super exciting. Now, how do you guys? I'm guessing how you're gonna make your money through GiveTree as an organization. How you guys can actually make your money so you can continue to build out your platform. I'm guessing that it's the marketplace model. So there potentially is a listing fee and potentially a sales fee, i.e., we're going to get a cut of every transaction that goes through the platform, and or maybe it costs you a certain amount of a cryptocurrency to actually list a project or an NFT on your platform. So how do you guys intend on making your money?
Basically, what we want to do is when it comes to NFTs, there's the primary sale and then there's the secondary sales. And when it comes to how we make money, we're going to take a percentage of each transaction, but that's going to be completely optional. So you don't have to pay us anything if you don't want to. So basically, when you're setting up your item, your NFT item or your NFT collection and getting it ready for you, set the percentages. So you choose how much you'd like to go to charity, how much you'd like to go to yourself. And if you would like to set a percentage for us, you can, but you don't have to. And that's for the primary sale that you set the percentages. And it's also then for the secondary sale that you set the percentages as well.
And I guess in that scenario, if they make no money go to you, then you would charge them a small listing fee, I'm guessing, to actually even put it on the marketplace?
If there's going to be costs incurred, then we'll charge a fee to cover costs. But if there's no costs, then no worries.
Wow. And so what, I guess, well, hopefully you would never run into this situation, but what if every single person listing on the site chose not to give any money to you guys? Then obviously you have an underlying cost of running the platform. So how would you guys support yourselves in that scenario?
It'd feel bad, man. It would feel bad, wouldn't it? Cross that
So,
bridge.
so in other words, you're not too concerned. You are confident, and you have enough faith in humanity that, hey, look, we're confident that, hey, look, if we provide this platform and it's good value for the people listing the NFTs, and they see the value that we're providing to the charity community, then they're gonna be happy to donate a percentage to us to keep us up and running to be able to do this.
Yeah, look, I think we trust our users. If we're asking people to trust us, then we've got to trust them back. So it's all about trust.
Wow, absolutely love this. And I love what you're doing. I love the heart that this is being done with. I love your backstory. Your backstory is amazing. You've come from a really difficult place, and you've had some charities and some community organizations that have helped you to get out of your pit, as I'm sure we all have, whether that be their local church, whether that be the local community center, doesn't really matter. They've had somebody that's given them a hand up as opposed to just a hand out. And it sounds like you've had that in your own life. And now, in that sort of circular economy mindset, you're wanting to give back to a community where you have seen value yourself, and it's allowed you to dig yourself out of a challenging place. And you want to give back in that way to your community through this project, which is GiveTree.org. And look, I'm super excited about that. And I love your passion for this, and I love your humility. What I've actually seen, and I'd love your thoughts on this before we wrap things up, but what I've seen is that the people playing in the NFT and the blockchain space are mostly, not always, because you get a mix of people, but they're mostly really super humble people, right from the artists right through to the technical people and everything in between. It feels like it's filled with a lot of humility, and that's something I have not often seen in the tech space over the last 20 plus years.
I got to tell you, I completely agree. And thank you so much for the kind words as well. I've been connecting with just random people in the metaverse through LinkedIn all the last 4 weeks, and just the coolest people, the nicest people, super humble, super helpful. Just everyone's really excited. I think everyone can feel that this is quite special. There's something going on. And it's, as I say, it's a vibe. There is a wave, there is a frequency, and it is a vibe.
Wow, that is super exciting, mate. Listen, I've already put you in touch, obviously, with Mike Angel over at Fractal and those guys over there. I know what they're doing is super exciting, and I think they're going to see some incredible success. The people on that Fractal team are some of the best in the world at what they do, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for what they're trying to achieve there. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for you and what you're trying to achieve. And this is definitely a bit of a brave new world thing happening here, and I'm really keen to see how this progresses over the next 6, 12, 18 months. And look, maybe we'll hook back up again in another 12 months, and we'll see where GiveTree is at that stage. And if people want to get a hold of you, where's the best places? Are they best to just go to givetree.org and go to your Discord there, or are they best to connect with you through LinkedIn? Or if people want to get a hold of you and help you out and contribute to your project or work with you in some way, how's best to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Go to givetree.org. If we do change from givetree.org, if we change that domain address to givetree.something else, then we will redirect givetree.org to that new address, which would be like givetree.io or something like that. So yeah, GiveTree website or web address and application is definitely the best possible place to go, because from there you'll get our most recent Discord link and my LinkedIn. You're more than welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn as well. Yeah, for sure. Just search Sam Joel, and then I've got Zenitsu from Demon Slayer as my profile picture. Yep.
Wow. Very, very cool. Sam, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I love what you're doing, and I'm really keen to watch how this plays out. Have a fantastic rest of your day, mate. Thanks for listening to the At the Coalface podcast. If you want more At the Coalface, you can subscribe to our premium e-commerce and digital newsletter, At the Coalface Digest.